Now let's head back down to Texas. We're going to go to Fort Worth.
Hi, Alan. This is Craig calling from Fort Worth, Texas. Hey, I consider myself a reasonably capable lawn care nut. I have a pretty nice Bermuda lawn, and I'm always looking for ways and opportunities to make it even better. As part of having a healthy Bermuda grass in general, and lawn in general, I also have a heavy and healthy infestation of St. Augustine grass in my backyard. As part of my obsession to have the greatest lawn on the street, I want to get rid of that St. Augustine infestation. I'm looking for help with possible or potential solutions to help me get rid of it. I'm open to anything, natural, chemical, whatever options are out there that would be effective. I'm hoping you can shed some light and help me make my lawn even better. Thanks. Bye.
All right, Craig, this is a great question. The reason this one's great is because it really makes me think opposite of what I normally do. So for those of you that watch the channel, you know that I actually have the opposite problem, and I talk about it ad nauseum, it seems like. And what that problem is I have a primarily St. Augustine grass lawn, and I have Floratam in one spot, and I get wild Bermuda that invades my Floratam, and there's absolutely nothing that you can do for it. Craig, on the other hand, has the opposite problem in that he has a primary Bermuda grass lawn and he's dominating with that, but he's got St. Augustine invading. So the first thing we want to do is stop more from coming in. Is that possible? In my lawn where I have the Bermuda invading my St. Augustine, it's not possible. I can't keep it out. It doesn't matter. But the opposite actually can happen. And so, Craig, the first thing I want you to do is figure out where is this St. Augustine grass coming from. My assumption is that one or all of your neighbors, front, back, sides, wherever, have St. Augustine grass, and it's coming across with stolons. And that's where I want to talk about prevention, because the thing that makes St. Augustine so aggressive and makes St. Augustine so strong is also one of the things that makes it weak, and that is that it can only spread via stolons. So let's talk about those two things, stolons and rhizomes. Bermuda spreads by both. Stolons are what you'd call above ground or just at the surface of the ground runners, and that's how our warm season grass takes over. Zoysia does this, Centipede does this, St. Augustine does this, and Bermuda does this. They send stolons across the top of the lawn, and you'll see them. They move out and they creep, and ever so often they'll stop and create a nodule. That nodule will then send roots down. It will send grass blades up, and then the stolon keeps moving, and that's how it takes ground. It's really interesting to watch, and in fact, I've showed in videos that I've neglected areas of my lawn in the back lawn, and stolons will crawl up in through bushes and hedges, over the top and down the other side and re-root in. These stolons are super aggressive. They're super strong. They're super fat. They're full of water, and they move and they take ground. That is the biggest strength of St. Augustine, is that it only has to put energy into stolons that can march across the ground, and it can take ground very quickly when it has enough water and obviously nutrients. However, that's also its weakness, because it can only spread by moving across the top of the ground. You can very easily stop it with a landscape curb or a landscape border. It doesn't even have to be dug into the ground that deeply. It just has to really sit up out of the ground a few inches, and then you can just weed whack along it or edge along it, and that St. Augustine will not invade anymore. It doesn't matter how aggressive it is. As long as you keep it weed whacked against that curbing, it's not going to go underneath, and you'll be fine. It won't invade anymore. Now that's different, and that's opposed to your Bermuda grass, which if you put a curb up that's not deep enough, it will just go underneath the curb and continue going on the other side, because rhizomes, they creep across the ground or just under the ground. They do the same thing. They creep under the ground, and ever so often they'll send grass blades up, and they'll send roots down. Rhizomes and stolons do the same thing. That's why I talked about why I like my zoysia grass so much too, because it creates this really super thick, dense mat of rhizomes and stolons that weeds can't get into. And Bermuda can do the same thing. However, when the Bermuda and the St. Augustine are together, and they don't play nice, because the strength of the St. Augustine keeps it alive enough that the Bermuda cannot choke it out. And so the first thing I would say then is let's stop the problem, let's stop the bleeding, and see what you can do to put up some sort of border or curbing around the edges of the lawn so no more comes in. So that's strategy number one, Craig, is to stop it by stopping those stolons from spreading. Now, the next part of the strategy then would be mowing. And this is where you have an advantage with your Bermuda. I would definitely start mowing your Bermuda as low as you can. If you can get a reel mower, if you can reel cut it, that's going to be best. Get it down to less than an inch. Now, if that's not a case, because listen, reel mowing is a real commitment. I know there's a ton of guys on YouTube now that are mowing their lawns with a reel, and it's awesome, and their lawns definitely dominate. There is nothing more beautiful than a reel mown lawn. And by the way, you can do it with zoysia, you can do it with Bermuda. I've seen a guy who real mows his St. Augustine. I don't think he takes it to 5/8 inch. In fact, I'm sure he doesn't. He takes it like to 2 inches, but he real mows his St. Augustine. You can real mow Kentucky bluegrass. You can real mow perennial rye. There are a lot of things that you can real mow, and you can get them down well below an inch, but St. Augustine ain't one of them. So if you can put that commitment into real mow, that'd be awesome. But I realize that's a commitment that 99% of the people that listen to this podcast and watch my shows cannot commit to. But what you can do is you can get a really good rotary mower, and you can get that down to 1 inch or 1 1/4 inches for sure. And I can tell you that 1 1/4 inch cut, that 1 1/4 inch height of cut on Bermuda is beautiful, and 1 1/4 inch height of cut on St. Augustine is devastating. St. Augustine cannot handle a cut that low. So that's the first thing I would try to do is mow it out. I would mow my Bermuda every day for a month. I'm serious. Every single day. Mow the lawn every day for a month at 1 inch. Your Bermuda will love you. It will send out more rhizomes and more stolons than it ever has, and the St. Augustine will be retreating, wondering what the heck is going on. Now, after you've mowed for that month and you've put that commitment on, I guarantee you that St. Augustine grass in the back, it's going to be a lot smaller. It's going to be definitely retreated. What is left, that I would recommend you glyphosate out. Now, I don't know how big your backyard is. I don't know how much deal you're dealing with here, but I would get some glyphosate Roundup. I would put that into a pump sprayer, and I would go and I would spot spray as carefully as you can what's left. What's left are going to be what you call mother plants. It's going to be wherever the St. Augustine retreated to its strongest spots, its strongest areas, because remember, you've mowed a good majority of it out. By the way, there's nothing wrong before you glyphosate with picking and pulling out as many of those big fat stolons from that St. Augustine as you can find. Just go out there and yank them out. But after doing that month of mowing and yanking out those stolons, whatever's left, spot spray with glyphosate and literally spray it out. Just kill it. You're going to lose some of your Bermuda. You're going to have some Bermuda that's going to also die back. Just be careful. Spray where you can. Overspray is okay. But what's going to happen is, I promise you, as you continue with the low mowing, which you need to continue doing, by the way, after the month, I don't expect you to mow every single day. Mow every 3 days from there. Get back onto a regular schedule. But what you're going to find is that the Bermuda is going to creep right back in. It's going to take right over much quicker than any St. Augustine that may have survived. And I guarantee you, if you do the glyphosate right, very little, if any, will survive anyway. And from there, you should be able to control it after that with just hand pulls. Now, that's a lot of work. I realize that what I've just told you is a lot of work, but you only have to do that lot of work one time. It's 1 month of your life, maybe 6 weeks, where you really have to get in and go after it that way. And then from there, you can just pretty much manage it with hand pulling. You can manage it from there fairly easily. So you are going to have to put that extra bit of work in now, Craig, but I know that when you do that, that it'll pay off for you. You'll get rid of that St. Augustine that's in the back, and you'll have that beautiful Bermuda barefoot lawn that you've been looking for. By the way, you should check out Reel Low Dad, REEL for real, if you want to see a guy that is actually working on his own Bermuda lawn. He mows with a reel, and he shows you everything that he does inside and out. He makes his own sprayers, all kinds of stuff, and his lawn is really progressing. You can see it really coming along, and it looks beautiful, and he is somebody that has that commitment that they can do with a reel, so you might want to consider watching that channel a little bit too. That's called Reel Low Dad. That's my friend Mike, and he actually can show you how to do a reel, because that might be something that's in your future if you really want to dominate with that Bermuda, Craig.